administration has not done, and that's turn over land from the Department of Correction at Rikers to the city for non-incarceration uses. This is supposed to be a process every 6 months. The mayor is supposed to review what land and buildings aren't being used at Rikers and then transfer that land out of the Department of Corrections control. Mayor de Blasio transferred one jail and 43 acres of Rikers to the city, but Adams has not moved anything yet, and that's a significant and maybe even a symbolic gesture that would indicate that he's committed to closing Rikers.
Matt, you touched on this. If the city or the mayor, Adams or someone else, ignores the law, what's that likely to lead to?
Yeah, I mean, in all likelihood, the mayor would get sued. There's something of a test case going on right now. The Legal Aid Society and City Council are suing Adams for not complying with a law expanding eligibility for housing vouchers, as you know. So we'll see what happens in that case. But I do think that's getting a bit ahead of ourselves. And I will note that the administration just this week did two things to indicate that it is committed to moving forward with closing Rikers eventually. It released two studies looking at the feasibility of turning Rikers into a wastewater treatment facility or a renewable energy hub. I mean, this is what advocates have long wanted, to close all the facilities and find better uses for this island. And the administration also recommitted this week to opening 3 housing units at city hospitals for detainees with medical, mental health, or substance abuse issues. These beds would be for people charged with crimes, so it would alleviate the numbers in the new jails that are opening. And these beds are supposed to all be open by 2027 in time for Rikers closure. Now, it's not enough beds, but it's something. So it indicates some good faith on the part of the administration that they're moving toward this goal that, of course, is set in law.
WNYC's Matt Katz. Matt, thank you. Looking at this council hearing coming up today.
Thanks, Michael.
WNYC is supported by Mount Sinai, where experts at the Mount Sinai Fuster Heart Hospital are advancing research to take on the #1 killer of both women and men, heart disease. More at mountsinai.org/heartcare. We find a way. Mount Sinai. New York Public Radio's Independent Community Advisory Board invites listeners who live in Queens to share your feedback about programming and coverage of your community. Join the CAB Wednesday, March 13th at 6:30 p.m. for a virtual meeting. Details at wnyc.org/CAB.
Staying with the President's State of the Union speech last night, we'll focus on key economic issues that Joe Biden addressed.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab, helping people invest in ideas they believe in with Schwab investing themes, with more than 40 themes to choose from. More at schwab.com. And by UKG. UKG is a partner that delivers HR, pay, time, and culture solutions designed to help build a great workplace for everyone. UKG, our purpose is people.
I'm David Brancaccio. A CBS News poll out this week found only 39% of Americans rate the U.S. economy as good, yet that percentage is up and is the highest rating on the economy in this poll since the autumn of 2021. President Joe Biden might have tiptoed around the economy in the speech last night, but that is not how it played out.
The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up, inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower.
Fact check. It's most of the developed world. Belgium, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia are among countries with lower inflation. Biden called out corporations for, in his view, taking advantage of consumers by raising prices unfairly. He also paid extended attention to his efforts to further lower prices for things like prescription drugs. He also called for raising taxes on corporations and the wealthiest of Americans while not raising tax on families making $400,000 or less. And among new proposals dealing with high housing prices, with during this time of high mortgage rates, a temporary tax credit to assist first-time home buyers, as well as an idea to get more homes for sale on the market by offering incentives to people to trade up from their starter homes. From the other side of the aisle, Republican Senator Katie Britt of Alabama delivered the GOP response, blaming Biden for the inflation that surged as the pandemic eased.
His reckless spending dug our economy into a hole and sent the cost of living through the roof. We have the worst inflation in 40 years and the highest credit card debt in our nation's history.
Britt sees Biden policies as burdening families with high prices on things like housing or childcare.
Hardworking families are struggling to make ends meet today. And with soaring mortgage rates and sky-high childcare costs, they're also struggling to how to plan for tomorrow.
Katie Britt, Republican Senator from Alabama. For more now, I'm joined by Felicia Wong, CEO of Roosevelt Forward, a sister organization to the liberal-leaning Roosevelt Institute in New York. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, David.
I mean, given public opinion polls, the president might have tiptoed around the economy. That is not what I saw.
He kept coming back to the economics over and over again. And he really showed that his administration has made a fundamental change. You know, he said trickle-down economics is over. That is a big statement.
Now, the Trump-era big tax cuts expire, and Congress will address that in 2025. You saw the president starting to put down some breadcrumbs that would represent a trail toward what the Democrats hope unfolds during what will be a raucous debate over that.
The president went big on taxes last night. You know, he said a fair tax code is how you invest in things, which is super important. And then he said, you know, for folks at home, do you really think the tax code is fair? That's where I think the president was hinting that there's going to be a big fight on taxes in 2025. And he named affordable childcare. He named paid sick leave. He named home care and elder care. He really hit all parts of that care infrastructure agenda. So he linked raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations. He linked that to a lot of things that Americans want.
There were some new economic proposals. One of them that stood out for me was help for people with housing. He was talking about a mortgage relief credit for first-time home buyers, $5,000 a year for just 2 years, and then provision to encourage people to sell their starter homes and move up to a bigger home, and that would open up some housing stock. What do you make of that?
The cost of housing is one of the things that really vexes many, many, many Americans. The cost of buying a home, the cost of rent, and housing supply overall. And what was notable is that both of the proposals that you mentioned, which were for first-time homeowners or for people who wanted to sell their homes early in their homeowning career, these were things that were going to get the market going. I think this administration recognizes that housing supply is a big issue. That's what those proposals were targeted at.
Felicia Wong, President and CEO of Roosevelt Forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, David. Great to be with you.
Checking markets, Dow futures are down 0.2%. S&P futures are little changed at the moment. NASDAQ futures are down almost 0.2%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Indiana University's Kelley School of Business, developing tomorrow's business leaders through the nationally ranked Kelley Direct Online MBA. Learn more about the Kelley Direct Online MBA's 25-year legacy at iu.edu/online MBA. And by Progressive Insurance. Customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto. Learn more about bundling at progressive.com.
The banking industry has won a big one. In his semi-annual testimony to Congress this week, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell suggested there will be a scaling back of what are called the Basel III endgame proposals to require banks to keep more cash just in case. Here's Marketplace's Kristen Schwab.
Wall Street CEOs have been lobbying against Basel III endgame for months. The idea was to create a bigger cushion in case there's more turmoil in the banking industry after the fall of Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic Bank and recent problems at New York Community Bank. More capital would help keep banks afloat if customers started pulling their deposits. Banks didn't like the proposal because the more capital a bank has to have, the lower its profits. They also say the mandate could cause another banking crisis because over the next couple years, lenders will face a $1.5 trillion commercial real estate loan maturity wall. Basel III Endgame was developed during the financial crisis in 2007. Changes would most greatly affect the country's 37 biggest banks. Once they're final, they'll be phased in over 3 years. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Our executive producer is Kelly Silvera, digital producer Dylan Mietinen, engineers Brian Allison and John Brewington. I'm David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.
WNYC supporters include Carnegie Hall presenting the American Composers Orchestra, America in Weimar, On the Margins, led by Ray Hatoda. They perform works by Antheil, Ellington, and Weill, along with several premieres. March 12th. Tickets at carnegiehall.org.
This is WNYC, FM, HD, and AM, New York.
Good morning. It's the morning after President Biden's State of the Union address. The president advocated for a little bit of everything in his speech, including more aid for Ukraine.
Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that it needs to defend itself.
I'm Michael Hill. It's Morning Edition from NPR and WNYC in New York. RuPaul is sending a rainbow bus full of banned books from the West Coast to the South. Bipartisan policy experts say the federal government can do more to help vulnerable children and families. And WNYC's transportation reporter cracks the cause of more big dogs on the subway. It's Friday, March 8th. The news is next.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Biden is out on the road today highlighting themes from his State of the Union address last night. Today, he'll travel to Philadelphia. Biden discussed issues from abortion to immigration in his speech last night, and he jeered Republicans who torpedoed border legislation that lawmakers had worked on for months.
The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing.
The border bill had won some key Republican support until former President Donald Trump slammed it. It was voted down in the Senate the same week it was introduced. There will be another big shakeup in the Republican National Committee today. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the 168 members of the RNC are going to elect new leadership.
They're expected to pick several loyalists to former President Donald Trump, including Michael Whatley, the chair of the North Carolina GOP, as well as Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, as co-chair. Having someone with his last name as co-chair has raised some eyebrows, but Morton Blackwell, a member from Louisiana, thinks it's a good thing. One of her roles will be raising money, and Blackwell expects she'll be able to reach people who don't usually give to the RNC.
So I think the finances of the RNC are going to be significantly improved by having her co-chairman.
He also pointed out that the RNC's ability to raise funds is directly tied to its relationship with Trump. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, Houston.
The city of Uvalde, Texas, has released an independent investigation into the police response to the mass school shooting at Robb Elementary School in 2022. It cited failures in communication and leadership, but the Texas newsroom Sergio Martinez Beltran tells us the report says local officers on scene did not violate any department policies, and the report blamed some victims' families instead.
According to the report, none of the 25 Uvalde officers violated policy when they responded to the shooting, despite waiting 77 minutes to kill the gunman. The report blamed families who rushed to the school that day for compromising the police response. The investigation also exonerates Mariano Pargas, the acting Uvalde Police Department chief, the day of the shooting. Veronica Mata, mother of 10-year-old victim Tess, slammed the report's findings.
All this is, it's a pact. It's a brother's pact. You protect your own.
Earlier this year, the Department of Justice found cascading failures of leadership, decision-making, tactics, policy, and training. For NPR News, I'm Sergio